Hey everyone, just a quick disclaimer, I will not be on camera for this video. I will explain more once the show starts, but since we need to have an intro, here's a montage of me throwing darts. Enjoy. Alright, welcome in everybody. Hope you're having a fantabulous day. Thanks for stopping by. My name is Garrett Shumake, and you are listening to the Shumake Take. If you've noticed, I'm not on camera. For the coverage, we're covering the NFL draft, I decided that I'm going to experiment with a couple different formats of doing draft analysis and doing stuff and figure out what I like, see what kind of sticks. So for this episode, everything's going to be strictly off camera. It's going to be all visuals and just going to be covering everything with, I'll still have like the graphics for the players and whatnot, but this will be more of a listening form of the Shumake Take. So if you just want to listen and enjoy with the better quality mic, if you guys have probably already noticed, go ahead and sit back and relax, and we're going to break down some of these top prospects here in just a minute. But a couple things too I got to talk about. For the strengths and the weaknesses, I did make my own graphics for them last time, for the running backs. And so for now, I'm just going to try and just use a screenshot from where I got my information from. And the information where I got it from was NFL Draft Buzz. I do this every year for all my draft evaluations. When it's time to look into it, I enjoy their work. I enjoy how in depth they go with evaluating each player and how they do their pro comps, how they compare to other players in the draft and whatnot. So I'm going to be using their strengths, weaknesses, and their summaries from the draft, from the prospects that we'll be covering today. And after listening to this, I would highly recommend you go check some of this stuff out yourself and see how in-depth they go, because they really do a lot of good work, in my opinion. And also, this will be some kind of a sort of a disclaimer. Some of the information that you might be looking at could either be slightly off, could be slightly off depending on the player, and or could be slightly outdated, because some of the stuff wasn't updated. What was last updated in early or like mid-March, and now by the time of this recording of this video, we're in very early April. The month just started, so I won't say, oh yeah, here's a correction here. What I say, I'll just make the correction verbally as I say it. I'm not going to sit here and I'm not going to call out the correction, if that makes sense. I'm just going to just speak it how I read it off normally, and if I need to make a correction in there, then I'll just verbally say it. So if something doesn't match up or something looks a little different, then that's why. Just wanted to say that disclaimer out there. But we got to get into it here in a little bit. Today we're going to be covering my top 10 wide receivers and covering my top 5 tight ends. I wanted to do a top 10 for tight ends as well, but I realized the video was going to be too long, and me being a college student, being crunched for time, realized that, well, I needed to save time somewhere, and tight ends ended up getting the short end of the stick this year. And I don't want to make it sound a little worse, but the tight end class this year is not my favorite out of other ones. So there are a couple prospects that I really like, so that's why I did top 5. But either way, we got to get into it in here in just a moment. Just going to gather my thoughts for a minute, trying to adjust to this new format on the fly. But we're going to get into it. Top 10 wide receivers, top 5 tight ends. We're going to do it right now. All right, we got to start with the wide receivers, and we're going to start with, of course, the number 1 prospect, Marvin Harrison Jr. out of Ohio State. And before I go on, I'm going to make a little quick disclaimer. With how I organize the information covering the running backs and the quarterbacks, I was not the proper way I wanted to go about it. So I'm going to talk about the player, where their college is, height, weight, stats. I'm going to give you my grade, my talent grade on them, whether they're going to be a first round, second rounder, whatnot, and then immediately go into their strengths, weaknesses, and then summarize everything at the end, and then I'll give you my best fits. So, getting in with Marvin Harrison Jr., of course, the wide receiver out of Ohio State, 6'3", 209 pounds, and last year he had 67 catches, 2,111 yards. Oh my goodness, I wrote that wrong. I think it was 67 catches, 1,211 yards, and then 14 touchdowns. Sorry about that. I wrote that down wrong in my script. But like I said, I have a first-round grade on him. Obviously, he is the best. In my opinion, he is the overall best prospect in this draft class. He is considered a generational talent. And while I don't believe in can't miss prospects, I believe that sentiment is very, what's the word? Like, I think that's too much pressure, and it doesn't make much sense to me because we really don't know what a player is until we know what they are in the league. Like, we can't say right now that he's going to be an absolute amazing, like, elite receiver in the league. We can't say that with absolute certainty because there's people that have gone to the NFL with that hype, like, for example, Jamarcus Russell and Johnny Manziel, and they didn't work out. So, with that being said, Marvin Harrison Jr. still is by far the best prospect in this draft class, and I think he shows amazing potential to where he could be a very, very good receiver in the NFL. And it starts here looking at his strengths with his production. Last in 2022, despite receiving constant press coverage and often seeing double teams because he was being the focal point of that Ohio State offense, he still put up a ton of really good numbers. And no matter what you put on him, he always produced. He always showed up, always played hard. And when coming here on the second thing, he's an elite athlete. Super soft hands with an innate knack for coming down with acrobatic catches. He's a very good technician, very good route runner. Even with basic footwork, the route running, and his hand usage, very well polished. And in 2022, he played more of an outside role. But in 2023, he played in the slot more, showing off a little bit of that versatility that he has. And not only is he good catching the ball and getting to it, he's also good after the catch. He's extremely competitive, he can break a tackle or two, and he also gives a lot of effort as being a downfield blocker in the run game. And down here too, I also have about the bloodline, because of course his dad is Marvin Harrison, who played with the Colts, and he's arguably a top 10 receiver all time, definitely. And with he has elite athletic skills. He made Bruce Freeman's freak list at number 2. He wrote at 6'4", 208. Right there, the numbers are a little bit off, but it is what it is. The son of Pro Football Hall of Fame receivers, remarkably gifted. He has everything. He's very strong. He can bench press 380 pounds and did 20 reps at 225 at the combine and squatted 500. He's very explosive, having a broad jump of 10'8", and is really sudden, having clocked at 3.94 in the shuttle and improved on his max velocity from last year up to 23.5 miles per hour. Asked for what training result he'd be most proud of, he says it's 5.10.5 given his height and weight, yet he can still run a sub 4 second time. I don't know what it means by 4 second, but we'll roll with it. Another thing here is that he combines a leap speed with his size. He accelerates off the line much better than most big receivers, and he's elite in contested catch situations, using his frame to effectively make plays facing the quarterback. He also shows a knack for high-pointing the ball very well, consistently out-muscling defensive backs. He tracks the ball well downfield as well, and consistently runs under long throws, and his long arms allow him to make plays even bigger than his size, and has a frame that can carry a little more weight, which really helps with his ability to catch those 50-50 balls and really extend his arms and make the circus catches that we've seen him make all the time. And despite his speed and size, he does have a lot of quickness off the line. His size, of course, as we talked about, is very rare, and his quickness to get off of NFL press should be very simple for him and very efficient. Getting into some of his weaknesses, though, he doesn't have very many, and you'll see that as a common trend among these receivers in the draft classes. They have a lot of strengths, but not very many weaknesses in their game, which really speaks to the depth that this wide receiver class has this year. But a couple of things I do really worry about with Marvin Harrison is that physically, he's a guy who should have success facing the quarterback, but sometimes he struggles to gear down and make the necessary sharp cuts to create separation underneath. Just a couple undisciplined issues right there. And his cuts aren't as sharp as you would expect given his elite athletics. And often he was brought down by first contact and doesn't break tackles in an open field very well. He's been shown to do it, like it's definitely possible, and with his size, but it's just something he just needs to work on. It's not very consistent, and something you'd like to see more with a guy that in his size. And one thing too is his ball security is average. He holds the ball loosely a lot, and he tends to hold it sometimes a little further away from his body than I would like. But the big thing here is like a lot of these traits are just things that can be coached and things that can easily be fixed. I'm not worried about these at all inhibiting his play at the next level. But Marvin Harrison Jr. is the best prospect in college football for a reason. He has prototypical size, standing at 6'3".
with a combined elite 4.3 speed, estimated from GPS data. It's rumored he'd run 4.3, but I believe it with how fast he can run. It's assumed that he can run a 4.3. But his elite size, strength, and his polished ability for the most part makes him almost a perfect prospect. But Marvin Harrison is pretty much as close to can't miss as you could get, almost. Like I said, I don't believe in can't miss, but it's very darn close to it. And definitely he will make it within the first 5 picks for sure, and he will be the first non-QB picked off the board. For his best fits, I believe because of where he's going to be drafted, it's either going to be the Patriots, because they've been rumored to may not be drafting a quarterback in this year's draft, or at least with their 3rd overall pick, they might consider trading down. So Marvin Harrison is in play here for them, I think. The Arizona Cardinals are there as well because they're picking 4th and they don't need a quarterback with Kyler Murray at the moment. And then the Chargers, because there's rumors that the Vikings will be trading up to 4 to draft JJ McCarthy. That's been gaining a lot of steam. So if 4 quarterbacks are taken off with the first 4 picks, and the next pick is the Chargers, who will obviously hold the 5th, and they need a desperate wide receiver help really bad. So those are the 3 teams that I think would be a best fit for Marvin Harrison Jr. Now we got to get into Malik Nabers out of LSU, 6 foot, 200 pounds. He had 89 catches, 1,569 yards, and 14 touchdowns. And he's another guy here who is definitely a top 10 pick. And I have obviously first round grade. Not much to be said there. And the big thing with him is he's super explosive. He's a super explosive guy, and especially in his route running. He has the ability to seamlessly shift gears, making him a huge matchup for defensive backs. And when he also made the Bruce Fieldman's 2023 Freaks list, he came in at number 33. He wrote that he measured just at 1.01 RL SMOD, reactive strength and index modified. This essentially describes Nabers' ability to compete at his max vertical jump at a very fast rate, so along with having a vertical leap of almost 40 inches. He can reach that feat faster than anyone on his team, and he also produced 2,700 watts peak power on power clean, which is remarkable for a skilled player. He has exceptional ball skills. He tracks mid-stride adjustments effectively, showcasing potential as a reliable deep threat in the NFL. And he combines his awareness with precise timing when playing the ball in the air, especially on underthrown passes. He's a very physical receiver possessing a versatile skill set, effective both outside and in the slot, with an understanding of zone coverages. He is comfortable and skilled in contested situations, consistently turning 50-50 balls into receptions, both vertically and on comebacks. He has a really good capability for run after the catch. He blends quickness with a strong lower half, making him elusive and difficult for solo tackles, almost like a Deebo Samuel type of element in his game. And lastly, exceptional leaping ability. I'm talking very fast here. Consistently high-pointing the ball away from his frame, especially on vertical shots and back shoulder throws. And the big thing for me with Malik Nabers, as we talked about, it's his explosiveness. And I would argue that his explosiveness is better than Marvin Harrison's, because quite literally, when you look at Malik Nabers, especially in 2023, he was making back-breaking play after back-breaking play, and every single week, he was putting up highlight level catches and going nuts. And honestly, I would make the argument in 2023 that Malik Nabers was more fun to watch than Marvin Harrison. Of course, it's very, very close, and he's not as polished as a player than Marvin Harrison, but definitely he has the explosiveness and the ability to play week 1 and probably make an impact and have a case for being an early candidate for Offensive Rookie of the Year. I believe that. He has the talent to show that off. But there's a couple things he does have to clean up. While he has flashed moments of brilliance, his concerns linger about his motor over a 16-game slate. His tape from the earlier part of 2022 showed inconsistently, and scouts want to see what that game-to-game grind looks like, although his 2023 season has probably put those doubts to bed. So simply just that's a sample size issue. We want to see just more of him being able to stay consistent throughout a whole season. But he definitely showed he can do it now in 2023, so that's something I'm not worried about too much, but it is something worth to be talked about. And although he pops off the tape with burst and short area quickness, when it comes to stacking and separating deep against sticky coverage from top tier corners, questions do arise. His vertical game isn't elite. Now I'm I'm going to scratch that. We're not going to talk about that. His vertical game is elite. He was the best deep ball player in college football last year, and I think it was him and Marvin Harrison, of course, always neck and neck with each other. But Malik Nabers, definitely, he has the ability to go catch a 50-50 ball. He has the ability to stretch a defense and burn your top corners. And yes, while he did struggle a little bit more when he played against better corners, that's just simply a product of the game. When good players go up against good players, sometimes the good player when it's equal, it'll come off as equal, right? It's not going to be like, oh, Malik Nabers, it hurts his draft stock because he played against a good corner. Like, sometimes you're going to win, sometimes you're going to lose. That's how it works. And another thing here is his route tree does need more branches. This is a legitimate concern. Well, not a legitimate concern, I should say, but this is a little small thing in his game that I wish I would see more of. While he's good in the slot and he's really good running verticals, he must master a wider array of releases and his routes and really just polish that up a little bit and expand it, especially if he's expected to be more an X or Z receiver in the NFL. And his ball skills are evident when he's asked to high point a catch or adjust, but when it comes to consistently beating defenders with his speed down the boundary is a gray area. Sometimes it doesn't work, so he has to go for those 50-50 balls. And so definitely I would like to see him use his speed to his advantage a little more than what we saw. But then again, he has that potential to be able to do it, and that should not shy away anyone from picking this guy as high as you possibly can. And overall, he is the number 2 wide receiver in the class for a reason. He's a prime pick for teams in the top 10. He's a dynamo in the slot with explosive yards after catch ability with sharp route running, showcasing NFL-ready quickness and separation. While he's a threat inside, he does need to polish his outside ability, but that's something that I'm not worried about with him at all. And on the field, he was a versatile weapon. Oh my goodness, sorry. I'm losing my train of thought. My throat is getting dry. His quick burst off the line and his ability to stretch the field are very key assets, making him a nightmare on deep routes. Although, like we just said, he must refine his release and his route running, especially against press coverage, to fully unlock his potential at the pro level. But his oh my gosh, man. But his skill set allows him to really make an immediate impact in the NFL day one. His speed, playmaking after the catch, the ability to snap off routes quickly mark him as a high upside prospect. He has the tools to really grow into a dynamic, versatile receiver and will probably put up serious numbers in the NFL. And going into his best fits to close him out, definitely the Chargers are on the board. Because Marvin Harrison could be drafted by the Cardinals, there's a possibility the Cardinals don't trade down. I think that if Marvin Harrison goes 4 to the Cardinals, Malik Nabers is immediately going next, in my opinion, to the Chargers. But if for some unknown reason something happens and he falls, he's either going to the Giants at 6 or he's going to the Tennessee Titans at 7th. I don't think he's getting out of the top 7 by that point. I don't think he's falling to 8th, 9th, or 10th. I just don't think it's happening. So there you have it. There is Malik Nabers, the number 2 wide receiver in the class. We're getting there. Just, man. Whew. Still trying to make the adjustment. And I'm also speaking very fast because we have 15 prospects to cover, so I don't want to take up too much of your time. But we need to continue. So the number 3 receiver for me is Odunze out of Washington. I also have a first round grade on him. 6'3", 212 pounds. He had 87 catches for 1,553 yards and 13 touchdowns. And Odunze is another one of these guys who is going to go in the top 10 outright. I don't think he's getting out of there. Well, I've seen some mocks have him going like 11th, 12th, or even 13th. I highly doubt that. He's too talented of a receiver. Excuse me. And the first thing that definitely jumps off the tape for me is his confidence. He consistently attacks the ball and snatches it away from the air and away from his frame. Another guy who made the Bruce Spielman's freak list, he was at number 58. And the thing with what makes Odunze so talented is because he was a high school sprinter. And he was a really good one too. Won the 4A state title in 200 meters and the 4x100 relay. In this offseason, Odunze ran a 4.34 40 and a 4.19 pro agility shuttle, and also did 37 inches on the vertical and 10.1 in the broad jump. He displays very good body control, especially on near sideline catches, demonstrating his adaptability and versatility as a receiver. He has advanced route running skills for his build, effectively sells vertical routes very well while fluidly changing direction to create separation. He also has a knack for exploiting zone coverages, routinely finds and occupies open spaces, showcasing on-field awareness. He also imposes a physical presence with his wide wingspan, giving him an expansive catch radius, unmatched by many in his class. He also demonstrates elite concentration with fast twitch reactions, especially on challenging off-balance catches. And when it comes to being a vertical receiver, he's a very smooth guy. He exhibits impressive ball tracking skills and the ability to adjust midair to deep throws. And with that, he shows potential as a yard after catch threat. He's elusive in open space with notable patience to set up blocks after screen plays. And oh my goodness. The script is all thrown off. But getting into some of his weaknesses, he does struggle in hand combat at the line of scrimmage. He tends to lean into finesse moves against the press, making him susceptible to physical DBs who can jam him and disrupt his release. And while he's clocked impressive times in shorts, his game speed appears to be inconsistent. Too often, his separation stems from nuanced route adjustments and playing through contact, rather than just pure burst off the line. And one thing here where he says lacks the gritty edge at the catch point despite his size. I don't buy that. I saw enough of him at Washington out muscling receivers all the time for me to not be worried about this at all. If it was where there was a couple times where it was inconsistent, he's shown me that he can do it personally, so I don't look at this weakness as something, as a real true weakness. Well, yes, it could obviously better. It could be better with any player. Any player can work to get better. But I've seen enough of him being able to do it right to where that's not a concern for me at all. But the biggest thing we talked about is release. His toolkit off the line is just very raw, from my opinion, especially for an X receiver. He needs to be able to polish it, get it down, and also be able to add more of a variety. And also have more violent hands and just really showcase that confident alpha mentality. Not just at the catch point, not just grabbing the ball, but also right at release, right off the snap. But outside of that, if he can master that, I think he could be a top receiver in the NFL as well. And his athletic prowess can't be overstated. While he's definitely the third ranked receiver because he's a little bit more raw as a receiver, definitely he has the ability to be. I think he has a better X potential than Malik Nabers. That is something that was very tough for me, trying to gauge whether who was 2 or 3. I think Malik Nabers just has to go number 2 because of his sheer explosiveness. While Odunze is also explosive as well, he's definitely more of an X receiver more than Nabers, who was a slot guy who can also develop into an X. It's more like Nabers can go from slot and X compared to Odunze being able to go from X to slot. But at the same time, Odunze, he is an incredible deep threat. And his confidence, which we talked about, really showed on tape. And he really is a go-getter. And that's what I really like about him. He fights hard, gets to the ball, and almost always comes down with it. And there's a reason why he was Michael Penix's favorite target in 2023. And overall, just his athletic prowess is very good as well. And I think he can definitely develop well into being a potentially top receiver in the NFL. So now, moving on to... I forgot the fits. The best fits for me are the Tennessee Titans, Chicago Bears, and New York Jets. He's definitely going to go near the end of the top 10. And I wouldn't believe that he could probably go to 6th at the Giants. It's possible if Harrison Jr. and Nabers go 4 and 5. I believe that he could go 6. But it's also but he'll definitely more than likely be available for Tennessee at 7, and number 9 at Chicago, and number 10 for the New York Jets. Definitely all those spots are the best fits in my opinion for Odunze. Next up at number 4, now the list gets a little more clean cut as of who is the best. I'll say this: 1 to 3 is a lot more muddier in debating who's number 1 compared to 4 to 10. And we start with number 4 with Brian Thomas Jr., the other receiver out of LSU. I also have a first round grade on him. And he's 6'3", 209 pounds. He had 68 catches for 1,177 yards and 17 touchdowns. And the big thing for me is exceptional ability to start and stop quickly. He showcases agility and control very, very well. And he boasts outstanding length. He provides an advantage in reaching and securing the ball. He also demonstrates natural explosiveness, aiding in creating separation. And he also moves very fluidly, enhancing route running capabilities. And adding on to and while he's very smooth when it comes to his route running, he's also very violent. His change of direction is instant, it's twitchy, and it makes him very elusive after the catch as well. He's also proven to be a formidable red zone target with his ability to high point the ball effectively. We saw that plenty of times last year in 2023. And unlike his teammate Malik Nabers and Odunze before him, his release variety is very well polished. He has a bunch of different ways he can jump off the line and get off a snap within the first 5 yards, and it helps him pose a threat on downfield passes. He's able to get that initial separation and get open when he's needed. But there is a couple things that I'd like to see him clean up a bit. When it comes to route breaks on shorter intermediate routes, it can be a little inefficient. Something I tend to see a lot. I shouldn't say a lot, but I tend to see somewhat often with Brian Thomas is that sometimes like it's that super sharp twitch, and then sometimes I've seen him a couple times actually kind of curve the route almost, compared to just being twitchy every single time. But that's another one of those things where coaching can fix that up and can be polished. And as I talked about, there's not very many weaknesses to the game of these receivers. Definitely a lot more strengths than weaknesses, which speaks to the depth of this draft class. But a lot of the weaknesses that I found watching my film and also reading office evaluation from NFL Draft Buzz, a lot of these things can easily be fixed and easily be coached. And not very many things here that I'm going to talk about when talking about receivers and their weaknesses. There's not very many things I'm going to list off that are actually huge concerns for me at the next level that could limit them a lot. And if you can hear the rain behind me in the background, I sincerely apologize. It is absolutely pouring right now. And we're going to hope that Thunder's going to cut out the power mid-episode, but we'll see. We're going to get there. So continuing going back to Brian Thomas, and more specific, he also needs to utilize his speed and athleticism more effectively to uncover against defenders. While he has that, another thing here with his route running, sometimes he's on the ball, he gets on it, he's able to outrun a defender, and his stop and start is perfect where it needs to be. But sometimes it's just a little off. I don't know if it has to do with just the natural game sense or how the corner's playing it is confusing him. But either way, it's something that he can clean up. And something too is he's still in the process of becoming a more physical presence along the route stem. He was really good on the outside last year, but definitely he needs more playing time in that role. If I remember correctly, he did not do very much of it in 2022 compared to 2023. But then again, he definitely showed that he can be an outside guy and really expand his ability to be all over an offense. It's another one of those things that I don't really worry about too much as really going to hinder his ability at the next level, in my opinion. And adding on to that, like I just talked about, he only had 1 year of really being a feature player in college. What did I just click? Either way. But prior to 2023, his play was not where we wanted it to be. But this year, he really did step it up. And he is a dynamic receiver with impressive combination of size, speed, and burst. He's a formidable vertical threat who showcases exceptional acceleration and smooth ball tracking skills, like his teammate Malik Nabers. His ability to explode off the line, combined with natural feel for space, makes him a very dangerous threat on both deep and short routes. While there are areas for refinement, of course, like in his route running, particularly on complex patterns requiring more sharp breaks, his potential is evident. His physicality isn't fully consistent with his size yet, especially in consistent catches, but he shows a lot of promise. Brian Thomas is a very high upside prospect for me, suited for a more vertical offense, where his ability to stretch the field and create after the catch can be maximized. If NFL teams think he consistently produced in 2023, or reproduce like he did in 2023, he'll be a no-brainer first-round selection. But the big thing is to make sure he's not a one-off. But definitely, with Brian Thomas and Malik Nabers, they were definitely, last year for LSU, they were a 1A and a 1B. They do play very similar, although a little differently. But I don't think you're going to go wrong if you pick either of these guys, in my opinion. But I think he's going to go, Brian Thomas will go in the middle of the first round. I think the best fits for him right now are Jacksonville, Buffalo at the top. They desperately need a number one receiver, especially now with the Bills trading Stephon Diggs to the Houston Texans, which I should have probably talked about first. But I might do that on another episode, maybe on tomorrow, talking about the offensive line prospects. I might put a little bit of time in there for that. And then also, I think Baltimore and Pittsburgh are underrated spots for him to go. I think that both the receiving core for Baltimore and Pittsburgh needs another receiver. While they have Zay Flowers and George Pickens respectively, and they both have good tight ends, I think they need another outside receiver that can really complement and help their quarterbacks, help Lamar Jackson and help Russell Wilson respectively. So it would not surprise me if one of those guys ended up picking Brian Thomas as well. All right, number 5, Adonai Mitchell out of Texas, 6'2", 205 pounds, 55 catches for 845 yards and 11 touchdowns. I have Adonai Mitchell as a late first round grade, early second round. And he's also another guy that's very long, very lean for a receiver with streamlined athleticism and wiry play strength. He's an explosive long strider with the ability to stack defenders out of stems with burst and speed. And he also displays a brisk lateral twitch with foot speed for meticulous releases. And he's very flexible as well, pitching tight angles at stems with ease. And he's also excellent at chopping his feet and hanging outwards on quick slants. He also uses violent jabs and footwork to bait and outmaneuver DBs. So he really utilizes his length with precision for late snap separation. And he also has strong body control, coordination, and ball tracking on the boundary. And we just talked about the long speed. While it's excellent, it may not be top tier elite, but it is still really good and something he can definitely improve upon. Another thing too here is he needs to utilize his agility and his twitch as a run after catch threat. While it's really good in his route running, it definitely needs to be better after the catch. And sometimes he misjudges pass pace on the trajectory in the deep third of the field, and his effort can wane late in reps against physical coverage on deep balls. And his route running can include wasted motion and inefficiency at certain points. But overall, Adonai Mitchell emerges as a promising talent in this draft class. He definitely has a lot of potential as an X receiver. His combination of size, athleticism, and technical prowess and route running makes him a compelling prospect. While definitely the areas for improvement, like consistency, deep ball tracking, and refining his route running in general, Mitchell's overall skill set offers a strong foundation for growth at the professional level. His ability to create separation and his strong hands make him a valuable asset for teams seeking a reliable wide receiver with upside. Given his trajectory and performance, Adonai Mitchell could make an impact in the NFL, particularly in systems that leverage his strengths as a boundary receiver. And a couple teams that I think would fit here, definitely, I mentioned at Baltimore before. I think Baltimore especially could really benefit because they have a more twitchy, shifty receiver in Zay Flowers. So to complement with a more physical guy could definitely work as well. I also like him in Carolina. If for some reason he falls into the second round, I think Carolina should scoop him up immediately with a 33rd pick. I mean, there's no reason why they shouldn't get another receiver to help Bryce Young. They do have Adam Thielen. They did get Deontay Johnson. And adding Adonai Mitchell to that would really help Bryce Young a ton. But it wouldn't surprise me either if Carolina did trade back into the first round to pick Adonai Mitchell. They think there's a team there that's going to pick him up, and that's something definitely to look out for. And Buffalo's on this list as well. Buffalo, now with Stephon Diggs being gone, definitely needs that outside guy. While he's not really so much of a speed guy compared to a guy like Malik Nabers or Odunze, he definitely still has that outside. Adonai Mitchell still has that outside presence and that ability to win catches on the outside and really separate well. And also the Tennessee Titans are also a pick here. They have the 38th overall pick, I believe. And they also desperately need wide receiver help. But it seems like they're going to draft a left tackle with their 7th overall pick, which puts them in line to draft a receiver and address another need that they have at 38. But I think that's where the best fits are going to be for Adonai Mitchell. my number 5 wide receiver in the 2024 NFL Draft. Next up, we have Troy Franklin out of Oregon. 6'2", 176 pounds. He had 81 catches, 1,383 yards, and 14 touchdowns. And Troy Franklin's my first receiver that I have a definite second-round grade on. And we'll get to that in a little bit later, but definitely he consistently increased his production throughout his college career. And this year was his best year he's ever had in college. And the big thing that jumps off the tape for me is his elite speed. He had a 4.35 40-yard dash and consistently left defenders behind as a premier deep threat. He shows precision in his route running ability and smoothly transitions from vertical stems to breaks, which puts constant pressure on defenders. As a versatile playmaker, he excels both on the outside and in the slot, consistently delivering explosive plays for his team. And in terms of man coverage, he dominates, often forcing the opposing defenders to resort to too high coverages to contain his ability. And he also became a fantastic high pointer this year. He displayed exceptional body control along the sideline, making challenging catches appear effortless. He definitely played much bigger than his frame did, which is something I kind of like. But he is a tall guy. He's 6'2", 6'3", give or take, and he combines his height with electrifying speed, which creates a very coveted size-speed combo that NFL teams do indeed highly value. And with his effortless agility, Troy Franklin moves fluidly and with ease, seamlessly changing direction and executing sharp cuts to gain an edge on the field. But his frame is very small. He is 176 pounds, 180 pounds, give or take. But for a 6'3" receiver, it is definitely smaller than I'd like to see, and it could leave him susceptible to physical cornerbacks, which can limit his effectiveness in contested catch situations at the next level. Adding some muscle might be necessary to have success in that role, so he plays in the role that he had in Oregon. And also, when it comes to run blocking, it's kind of meh. Like they're good, like they're fine. They're fine. They're just okay. Right? They're not great, but it's definitely like it'll do. It'll very do much for me. But even with additional weight, what my big concern is while he did play outside and he really was good at catching 50-50 balls, because of that lack of weight, I don't know how much his ability to break tackles will improve. That is one of those like legitimate concerns. Is that his play strength, because of his lack of size, he just doesn't play with that. That's just not his game. Which it does leave him susceptible to being outmuscled by more physical defenders in the NFL. And all too often you see him turning and running before pulling in a clean catch. That's a thing that coaching will fix instantly. I'm not worried about that much at all. But the big thing is his weight and his ability to break tackles and also durability. While he was healthy, I don't think he suffered very many injuries, if at all, at Oregon. That lack of size is definitely a concern for me. But then again, we've seen smaller receivers make it big in the NFL recently, especially with guys like Devontae Smith, the wide receiver for the Philadelphia Eagles. But just overall, he embodies the archetype of a downfield burner at the next level. His game is centered around elite speed, particularly when he kicks into high gear down the field. That top-end speed allows him to outrun defenders with ease once he gains the step, making him a legitimate deep threat. What sets him apart is his ability to combine the speed with nuanced route running. What sets him apart is those two things. He consistently keeps defensive backs guessing with a variety of releases and creates separation and opportunities for money plays. Despite his speed and crafty route running though, his skinny frame presents some challenges. He might struggle with press coverage at the next level, especially against bigger DBs who will outmuscle him, and his effectiveness in contested catch situations could be better as well. However, his top level yards after the catch skills aided by quick feet and agility make him a very big threat in open space. Some of my best fits here. Buffalo's going to be on this list a lot. A lot of these teams that I talk about what the best fits are, they're going to be the same. Not just because I think they're going to fit there well the best. They'll utilize his skill set the best, but mostly because a lot of these teams that I mentioned desperately need wide receiver help, and they need to get it wherever they can. So if they miss on one of these guys, they have to be lined up to get the next best available guy. And at number 6, Troy Franklin is definitely a very good option if you want a guy with speed and the ability to dominate after the catch. So Buffalo is up there, of course. Carolina's up there as well. If Adonai Mitchell doesn't get out of the first round and they feel like trading in is going to be a little too much capital for them, definitely I would take a chance on drafting Troy Franklin. Maybe he's a reach at 33rd, But maybe if you can get the right deal to trade down a few spots and pick him at a closer spot of where he's valued on your board, definitely could be a good pickup for them. And the New York Giants. While the New York Giants, they could draft a receiver at 6. I'm not going to hold that opposed to them, but they also need offensive line help as well. So if they also go with offensive line, like Tennessee, like I think Tennessee might as well, definitely could be a guy that they could pick up to pair well with Jalen Hyatt, who was one of Troy Franklin's pro comps. Both are just elite burners down the field, and it could be really fun. Really could make the Giants' offense, which was very boring, very fun to watch next year and for maybe a couple years down the line after that. But now we got to get to number 7, Ladd McConkey out of Georgia, 6 foot, 186 pounds, another smaller guy. He had only 30 catches for 478 yards and 2 touchdowns last year. And he's another receiver that I have a second round grade on. And like Troy Franklin, he's a very fluid athlete, and he's an excellent short area quickness, capable of creating separation and threats the seam a lot. Excuse me. He has precise route running ability with a natural feel for setting up defensive backs. He's also effective at tracking the ball downfield and consistently runs over long throws. He also shows good initial quickness off the line, strong enough to escape jams at the next level. So he definitely has better physical ability than Troy Franklin in that regard. He's a very coordinated hands catcher who effectively tracks the ball in the air. And he's a very good run blocker on the outside, which adds a lot of value to his skill set. And along with being able to run under the ball, he's very good at locating and tracking in deep passes as well, which makes him a very legitimate vertical threat. And he's also willing to attack the ball, showing aggressiveness in aerial duels. But the big things that bother me are that he lacks a twitch to consistently create separation and struggles for the contested catches. While he is a go-getter, he doesn't get them very often, which I'd like to see more of. And when it comes to catch and run transitions, I just need to see more. It just seems like he's a little uncomfortable from just getting out of the break, getting open, getting the ball, and then tucking it in and running. And the biggest thing here, and another one of those legitimate concerns, is his size. And I think more likely he's going to be more of a slot guy at the next level. Because of that smaller frame, it definitely poses him a challenge to win outside consistently. Another thing, simple coaching thing, but immediate route fluidity could be improved. But at the same time, I'm not worried too much about that. And then his route running ability needs to be a little bit more nuanced to consistently leverage against DBs. Sometimes it can be a little predictable. But these are coaching things that I don't really care about. I should say I care about, but those are things I'm not going to worry too much about if I'm a coach. Something that can be developed, and something that, of course, can definitely be fixed. And the best fits for him are Carolina. Arizona could be a spot. Maybe you decide to double up on receiver with Marvin Harrison and Ladd McConkey. You get an outside guy and an inside guy. That could be really interesting. And another thing too is Dallas or Philly is one of the underrated ones for me, because Dallas, while they have Brandon Cooks and of course CeeDee Lamb, they could use a slot guy, so I think he could fit in there too. And also Philadelphia, because Devontae Smith and AJ Brown are outside receivers, definitely getting that third guy that can really unlock the offenses of these two teams, who already have top 10 offenses, arguably top 5, but definitely adding Ladd McConkey could probably put these two offenses over the top, in my opinion. Now we got to get to number 8, Xavier Legette out of South Carolina, 6'1", 221 pounds. He had 71 catches, 1,255 yards, and 7 touchdowns. And this guy, for me, I really love Xavier Legette. I didn't know too much about him when I started doing my evaluations for these receivers, but the more I got to see him and the more I watched him play, the more I really fell in love with him. I would argue that he could go in the first round. I would be willing to argue it, if it wasn't for the fact that Harrison, Nabers, and Odunze are in this draft. If maybe like the 3 of them went like last year, I think Xavier Legette would definitely be a first-round talent. He's so similar to DK Metcalf, it's not even funny. In size and strength and speed, he's a physical freak. But that's not all he has. He's a very reliable receiver, and he has the ability to make difficult catches in traffic along the sidelines. And despite his size, his acceleration is amazing. And his top speed, just talked about it. He's very fast for his size, and he's capable of outrunning any corner. He has the ideal height and possesses a solid build, and he's like DK Metcalf. He's built like a linebacker, but he also has very strong hands, and he's effective in pulling the ball in contested situations. And he's a very good vertical guy as well. With his athleticism, he's able to consistently beat corners, whether at the catch point or running past them. And just right there, he's a contested catch specialist. He's very, very good at it, and made a ton of really good plays last year for the Gamecocks. And surprisingly, he's very quick off the line, which can beat press coverage. And that's something I really thought would be a downfall in his game, but it's not. It's surprising like how quick it is and how effective he is at it. And along with that, his very good elite balance and burst, demonstrating great ability in tightroping the sideline and breaking out of his routes. And that's something I also really like to see too. Along here with the flexible and agility here at the bottom, is that not only does he have the size, he knows how to use it. He knows how to use it and use it well. And that's what makes me very excited for him as a prospect. But some things he does need to work on. He does tend to let deep throws get into his pads and his chest compared to just securing it with his hands. Sometimes he'll just let it fall there instead of just going up and getting it. And another thing too is while he's a good route runner, when it comes to sitting down against zone coverage, he definitely needs to work on that and just get a feel for it sitting in. And he's comfortable when it comes to running through traffic, but sometimes lacks the effort in creating separation from defenders. Sometimes he kind of just relies on his size a little too much when he could just, make a break or two, get open, and just make the play there. And another concern that some people might have is limited college production. This last year was really his breakout season. He didn't really do too much before then. And because of I don't know if South Carolina runs more of an air raid offense. I would have to look into that to be sure. But definitely with his lack of ability to sit in zone coverage and some of his stuff with reading how a corner is playing him, he might struggle to adjust to a higher complexity of NFL defensive schemes initially. But I think with time, he's going to develop, and I think that's going to get better for sure. His measurables, of course, are really like the big thing about him. They're insane. His low 4.3 speed in the 40-yard dash, along with his size and height, it's something we really have not seen since DK Metcalf, like I talked about earlier. He excels in making the contested catches and using his physicality to gain yards after the catch, which makes him a really good deep threat and red zone target. Although he's played only 1 year of college football, not 1 year of college football, one significant year. This last year was his breakout year. We definitely have to see if that's, if that was just a 1 year fluke or that is who he's going to be at the next level. And his transition to the NFL will require improvements in his footwork and explosiveness off the line, and really getting that honed in, and also getting more open in the open field, being able to get out of his break, not rely on his body too much. But he definitely overall has an upside as high as any receiver in the class, even like Marvin Harrison, Nabers, and Rome Odunze. It's definitely up there, and we could definitely see why a team could fall in love with him. And while has him as a second round grade, if he goes late first round, while some people might find it shocking, depending on the team, I may not find it that shocking. If receivers are going off the board left and right, it's definitely going to boost his value a ton. So definitely if Brian Thomas goes higher and Adonai Mitchell go higher than people initially think, he definitely has a case to go higher and even go above Lad McConkey and Troy Franklin because of his measurables. But the best fits here for me, for Xavier Legette, are Jacksonville. They're one of those teams that really need a wide receiver and a guy who can really, really benefit with Trevor Lawrence and his arm strength. And the New Orleans Saints are also an option here. While I think the Saints have other big needs on their team, maybe getting a high upside receiver in the second would not be too bad to pair with Chris Olave, who right now is probably going to be alone with Michael Thomas potentially leaving the team. And the Giants are up here as well. They might, like I talked about with Lad McConkey, Troy Franklin, because they might draft an offensive lineman with their 6th pick. I think they definitely could go for a receiver and probably should go for a receiver in the set with their second round pick. I don't remember where they're picking in the second, but I think it's high. So if he's available for them there, I think you could probably take Xavier Legette and get a really good high upside player. Now we got to get to number 9, And this will be Roman Wilson out of Michigan. 5'11", 185. He had 45 catches for 735 yards and 12 touchdowns. Another guy who would have it going more in the late second, early third round, but I think he's going to go in the second for sure. Probably the mid, if I'm really thinking about it right now. And he's another guy who made the Bruce Philipman's freak list. He was at number 73. He clocked a 4.37 at the 40. A 6 foot, 180 or 5'11", 185 pounder. You can see some of the consistencies there with what it is at the combat measurements, and then another type of measurement. We're not going to talk about the inconsistencies in measuring people, but either way, he wows coaches with his ability to accelerate, decelerate, and control his body. This offseason, Roman Wilson clocked a 4.33 40 out of a 2-point stance, ran a really good 6.2 3-cone drill that was only upstaged by his teammate Amorian Walker. But Wilson topped everyone with a 3.77 shuttle time and also had a terrific 10.76 60-yard shuttle and flew off the Wolverines' reactive Philo stairs in 2.22 seconds. He displays elite explosiveness and long speed, capable of outrunning angles and showcasing remarkable agility in short areas. He's an exceptional route runner with the ability to win with speed and precise route transitions, creating separation effectively. He also has very strong hands and expansive catch radius for his size, and he's adept at attacking the ball early and securing the catch. His zone awareness is very impressive. He's able to find gaps in zone coverage and exploit safeties with his quick adjustments, and he displays that versatility and potential in special teams, adding value beyond his receiving capabilities. And when it comes to making clutch plays and really making plays when it matters, he's proven to be able to do that. And that coincides right along with his quarterback, J.J. McCarthy, who also showed the same thing. Those two were very linked when it came to important situations, especially on third down. They found each other a ton. And another thing to note, for Roman Wilson, is that he has a lot of mental toughness. He's resilient. He demonstrated through consistent performance despite physical challenges. He definitely never backs down from a fight, despite his smaller size. But the big concern for me is, of course, that physical size when it comes to the next level. It may restrict him to maybe being a more slot receiver type of a guy, and also a kick returner. Because of that size, he will struggle against more physical corners at the next level. And although he's great at getting open and he's great at the catch point, when it comes to getting yards after catch, it's not great. He doesn't have the power to break the tackles like you'd like to see. And while he's really good route running, his footwork could use some refining, could use a little bit of polish to really enhance the deception effectiveness against more savvy defenders. And he also has an injury history, potentially impacting his long-term availability. But at the combine, I think if I remember correctly, he was all cleared. Doctors medically cleared him to be 100% healthy as of right now. So they are going to be getting a healthy receiver, whichever team picks him. And his ability as a run blocker is below average, which limits his versatility in the run game. But his journey from being a highly touted high school prospect to a standout at Michigan will set him up to be an intriguing player in the NFL. His elite speed and sharp route running ability makes him a valuable asset, especially against teams that need an agile receiver in the slot. While concerns about physicality and durability may affect his draft stock, Roman Wilson's ability to create separation and his performance in clutch moments cannot be overlooked. Teams with a need of a versatile receiver who can also contribute on special teams will find his skill set particularly appealing. His standout senior year and proven track record in high-pressure games give him momentum, but his ultimate draft decision will hinge on teams' evaluations of his ability to adapt to the NFL's physical demands. And his best fits for me are a team that really values speed and versatility in its receiving core, and is willing to utilize him in a variety of roles, including special teams, end arounds, stuff like that. And the ones that come to mind are Kansas City, who definitely need to draft a receiver. I think they're not hitting very well when it comes to Sky Moore and Rashee Rice. But definitely they could use a guy that could really take them over the top. Buffalo's another consideration, with Josh Allen's incredible arm. Using that speed could really help them stretch that offense a lot. But also the Miami Dolphins. While I don't think they would draft Roman Wilson, especially in the second round, I think they'd be investing too much in the wide receiver position. As weird as that sounds to say, but I mean, Tyreek Hill is top paid receiver. I think he's number one paid highest receiver. You're going to have to pay Jalen Waddle. So I don't know, maybe you do draft Roman Wilson and keep him as a guy in the slot who can really fit in with that offense that is very, 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 very fun to watch. But now we got to get into number 10. Keon Coleman out of FSU, a guy who's going to go late second, early third in my opinion. He's 6'3", 213 pounds. He is a monster of a guy. He had 50 catches, 658 yards, and 11 touchdowns last year. And I just talked about it. His prototype, his physicality is very prototype, exactly what you'd want in a receiver. His size, it's elite. His frame is huge and very compact. He's a very prime athletic build. And we'll get more into his long speed in a little bit, but his acceleration to get to his top speed combined with his footwork is really good considering his size. He's also really good at manipulating DB blind spots and employs efficient diamond releases and robust hand techniques to separate. He has very impressive ball skills, really good at timing and body control with remarkable strength at the catch point. In my opinion, he might be a top 3 50-50 guy in the draft. It is I'm willing to make that argument. At the very least, when it comes to 50-50 balls, he's top 5 in the draft. Definitely. There's no denying that for sure, that he is a alpha as a guy. He's an alpha. He goes and gets the ball. He will come down with it. And adding on to that is his aerial adjustments. He showcases gravity-defying contortions and consistently extends beyond his frame to secure catches. While he plays within his frame, he is also able to play beyond it and really just showcase his ability just to go up and get it. And he's also a threat after catch, this little sneaky threat. He blends his agility with contact balance and his physicality to really elude and overpower defensive backs. And like I just talked about, his alpha mentality, he goes for those contested catches all the time. His instincts are just really good, and his strength is just right exactly where it needs to be. And he's a showcase. He's also a multifaceted athlete because he's played basketball at FSU as well. I think Tom Izzo is the basketball coach, but I know he played college basketball. Pretty sure. You know what? I'll look that up, and if I'm wrong, just please correct me in the comments. But yeah, he's a multi-sport athlete, which helps with his versatility. But some things I really want to see improve are his sharpness in his routes. He occasionally will lack the burst and crispness on certain angled route breaks, which affects his separation ability. And his acceleration concerns, while his acceleration getting to his top speed has no problems, it's his long speed that really makes it challenging for him to consistently outpace boundary DBs in deep ball situations. And along with that, he ran a 4.61 at the combine, and his overall speed is very concerning to me, because while you're very big, while you're very physical, and you're going to make a lot of 50-50 balls, I mean, against a more physical corner that can match up against him, I don't know how often he's going to win those. He's a guy that's really going to probably early on in his career benefit from, really getting him in the right matchup consistently. I don't think he's going to be a guy as a rookie who's going to immediately go out there and just start catching balls over everybody. Definitely, you're going to have to scheme him up and really scheme him open at first to really have him make an impact, I think. But that speed is really concerning, but I don't know if it's going to hold him back as much as people think it will. And despite his size, another thing here is his inconsistency in run blocking. I'd like it to be more despite his size, and I like him to be more aggressive with his technique. And along that, overall, his technique does need a little bit of polish. He can always improve on his footwork, his hip flexibility, and his contact balance for a more consistent and effective playmaking player. That makes a ton of sense, right? But overall, I think he's an incredible guy going up getting 50-50 ball. He's an alpha receiver. He has the mentality. He's a go-getter. And there's a reason why early on in the college football season that he was projected to be an early first-round pick. He was like that for a reason, but he fell because other players' stocks just rose that much higher, more than his dropped because he wasn't that good. I think he's still a guy. He can potentially be a steal of the draft if you're a guy that you really think can get him faster, if he can really evolve that speed and just really refine his ability and his techniques. Because he is a physical guy, he is an alpha, and he definitely has the athleticism to potentially make it big at the next level. And for the best fits for him, I think Cincinnati is going to be the team that's going to pick him. They definitely need a receiver because of T. Higgins. asking for a trade, and with also Tyler Boyd being gone, I don't think Keon Coleman's going to be a guy in the slot. I think he's almost a strictly outside receiver. But definitely if T. Higgins gets traded or he decides to hold out and not play, I don't know what the deal is going to be with him. But they could definitely use a receiver to back him up that could develop and definitely be that number 2 guy next to Jamar Chase. And Pittsburgh's another option. Because George Pickens is another alpha type of guy, another alpha type of receiver that can dominate in 50-50 balls, pairing him up with Keon Coleman definitely is nightmare fuel for opposing defenses, especially if you get a quarterback in there that really has a good arm. And I don't think Russell Wilson's going to light the league on fire next year with Pittsburgh. I think at least he could probably stabilize the quarterback situation and really get some good production out of him. And adding Keon Coleman to that could really help push that to a place where Pittsburgh fans want it to be. And another one is Detroit. While Amon-Ra St. Brown is great, they have Sam Laporta. Jameson Williams he's not developing as well as I thought it would be, and he's still trying to figure everything out. So adding a guy that can help get attention away from Amon-Ra St. Brown and help Jameson Williams, I don't think anyone's gonna doubt that and saying that Keon Coleman would definitely help get some attention away from Amon-Ra St. Brown and help Jameson Williams as well. Because I think they lost Khalif Raymond, they did lose Josh Reynolds, so they definitely need a guy to help build the depth at the very least and flush it out. But I'm going to take a short break before we get into the tight ends. I got to go drink some water, just take a couple minutes to relax. I've been talking for a while, and as you can tell, I probably got softer in my voice talking about these prospects compared to the start. But also, I'm not trying to speak too loud to where my mic is just screaming at, I can see the audio level is just going way too high. But I will be back in just a few minutes, and we got to cover the tight ends. All right, we are back, and we got to start talking about tight ends. I just had to get some water really quick and just listen back to the audio, making sure everything is okay. And yeah, everything sounds great so far. Definitely a lot more consistent than any other microphone I've used so far. And that is a benefit to using or doing this format where I'm not on camera and just keeping everything 100% just visual content instead of it, or I shouldn't say visual content because me being on camera is visual content. So more just catering towards the listener more than the watcher for this video. It definitely helped a lot because of this mic. The mic I use for my computer. It's a lot more consistent. You can probably tell it's very nice as well. My voice probably sounds a lot more clean, a lot cleaner. That's probably the better way to put it. But that's enough talk. Gotta save can't let my throat get dry too soon because we got to talk about our tight ends. We got to talk about the number 1 tight end outright, not even close. It is Brock Bowers out of Georgia. I have a first round grade on him. 6'3", 243 pounds, 56 catches, 714 yards, and 6 touchdowns. He's another guy who we talked about with the receivers. He made the Bruce Fieldman's Freaks list, ranked at number 45. Excuse me. His speed, it is absolutely insane for his size. And he comes from a really athletic family as well. His mother was an All-American softball player at Utah State, and his dad was a 2-time All-Big West center for the USU football squad. And he ran a 4.49 40-yard dash and is expected to only get freakier with more time in the Georgia strength program. But when it comes to his play strengths now, his unique combination of exceptional athleticism and size, it makes him stand out as a potent offensive weapon at the tight end possession, something like that. Also, he's renowned for his ability to make plays after the catch. He led all college tight ends in yards after catch, amassing an impressive 479 yards. Whether he's wide open or heavily guarded, Bowers displays elite ball skills, ensuring reliability at every catch point in various game scenarios. His rare versatility is evident in how he's scheming and plays. When he can run a sweep, reverse, a screen, he consistently delivers explosive plays no matter what he's doing. And outside of his play strength and body control, never mind, outside that says outstanding. His outstanding play strength and body control make him a formidable force on the field, easily navigating through physical confrontations with defenders. And one of his standout qualities is his relentless motor and energy. This infectious drive not only inspires his teammates but also sets the tone during games. As a receiver, he showcases remarkable skills from maximizing his catch radius to asserting dominance at the catch point, making him a nightmare for defenders. And while Bowers has a reputation as a receiver, his potential as a blocker is notable. His promise in this area suggests a bright future, further solidifying his draft stock. While Bowers exhibits expressive physicality at the catch point, his ability to consistently separate top-tier NFL safeties will need some refinement. The risk is a potential over-reliance on zone coverage mismatches in his early career, especially when facing physical defenders who can disrupt his route timing within the contact window. While he weighs 240 pounds, it raised questions about his role in the NFL. As an inline tight end, his size might limit him, potentially pushing him more towards a flex tight end position. His surrounding tight end room will need to be carefully constructed to complement his skill set. After reading this, I didn't see this as a problem at all at the NFL. He definitely is another receiver out there. I don't think that his size is going to be a limiting factor. I don't know. This is one of the things I disagree with. And I know I wasn't going to call out the correction, but this is one I am going to call out. Brock Bowers, with his size, we saw it enough in college to where he's definitely going to be another receiver, and he's going to be really good at it. I don't think his size is going to limit him pushing and limit his role. I simply just don't believe that's going to happen at all. And while he is a very fluid route runner, moving on, there is room for improvement in mastering the full route tree. His tendency to round off breaks and occasional mistiming can hinder optimal play execution. Consistency in route precision remains to be an area of polish. And lastly, his battle against physical physical press coverage, something like that, whatever those words go together mean, and his limited release repertoire are concerning. Encountering challenges against robust defensive lines and lacking a wide array of release moves could hinder his effectiveness. While his inline blocking showcases potential, refining his technique is paramount for NFL-level play. But to summarize it all together, his meteoric rise in Georgia's football program is nothing short of absolutely remarkable. From his inaugural season in Athens, he showcased a rare blend of abilities that distinguish him from the typical freshman. His stat line is a testament to his prowess, accumulating 24 touchdowns in 2 years, with both receiving and rushing contributions. His freshman year alone, he had 56 catches for 882 yards and 13 touchdowns, definitely raised a ton of eyebrows. Following up with a sophomore year that saw 63 for 942 and 7 touchdowns, he is on the pursuit of etching his name alongside Georgia's legends, closing in on AJ Green's reverend position on the all-time receiving list. In the landscape of collegiate tight ends, most find their niche as complementary pieces. Bowers, however, possesses the attributes as a skill set to be the cornerstone of an NFL franchise. His blocking acumen paired with his dynamic ability as a pass catcher sets him apart from the undisputed number 1 tight end in the class. Such a distinction is not merely about his inline abilities, it's about his potential to redefine the tight end position in the NFL. Drawing comparisons to elite prospects like Kyle Pitts, Brock Bowers is already generating buzz as one of the most coveted players of the 2024 draft. It's always a gamble predicting collegiate success to professional transitions, but with Bowers, the odds seem overwhelmingly in his favor. His unmatched recent production at the college level makes him a tantalizing prospect for NFL teams. And while the league has been hesitant to invest in high draft picks for the tight end position, Bowers presents a compelling case to break the trend. As he remarks, as his 23 season was incredible, the narrative isn't just about his draft stock, it's about the potential to be immortalized as one of the greatest tight ends in college football history. And his trajectory has suggested that he's not just a top 10 pick, but he could potentially have a dominating NFL career ahead. And for me, while he definitely has top 10 prospect potential, because the tight end position is not very highly, it's not a high priority, it's more of a luxury pick to be drafting in the first round for a tight end. So I think that's why he's definitely going to fall. And a team that could really pick him is Cincinnati. I would love him to see in Cincinnati, because Jamar Chase as a great outside receiver, if T. Higgins ends up playing this year, you pair that with a guy like Brock Bowers who can attack the middle of the field. I mean, that's a deadly combination. It definitely can make up for the missing piece or the missing void that Tyler Boyd left when he went into free agency. Another team that I'd like him to see with is the Indianapolis Colts. They need another receiver. Michael Pittman's good, but Alec Pierce and a couple other guys aren't really doing it for me as much as I'd like them to be. But Brock Bowers would really fit because he's a good receiver. He has potential to be a really good blocker and an offense that is more run first for sure, and especially would help Anthony Richardson out a ton and give him another solid safety blanket for him to throw to. And the Chargers could be at fit here. While we believe that the Chargers would be inclined to pick a receiver at number 5. It would not surprise me if they picked Brock Bowers, a guy that could do both, who can block and catch the ball, and he's a really good guy. As we talked about, can attack the middle of the field. It is very possible if he goes into the top 10, the only place he's going to go is to the Chargers, in my opinion. I know Tennessee was also rumored to be interested in him, and I'm sure they are at least a little bit. But looking into their tight end room, I think they're going to be okay with Chigozie Okonkwo and then Josh Wiley going into the second year. It wouldn't surprise me if they picked him, but at the same time, they also have bigger needs like wide receiver and offensive tackle. I don't think they need to be picking a tight end that high. So number 2 on this list is Ja'Tavion Sanders out of Texas. I have a 2nd to 3rd round grade on him, and he's 6'4", 245 pounds. He had 45 catches for 682 yards and 2 touchdowns. He's an excellent open field blocker, and it takes effective angles and shows strength against secondary defenders. And super reliable receiver potential outside his high pointer ability. While he showed a little bit. Oh my goodness, let me gather my thoughts for a second. While his combine in this regard was a little bit contradictory and came off as a little disappointing, I think he showed enough in college for me to not really worry about it too much. Definitely the nerves probably just got the better of him. Ja'Tavion Sanders is definitely the 2nd best receiving tight end in the class, and he's definitely very similar to Brock Bowers in that regard, where he's a good receiver. But at the same time, as we just talked about, he is a good blocker in the open field. But going back to that receiver ability, he exhibits great speed, deep speed, and agility as a route runner, and he's effective after the catch and shows potential as a screen receiver who can take it all the way. His lateral movement for his size is very nice and adds versatility to his receiving abilities. And when it comes to going against a linebackers just simply cannot cover him. And he will need a corner to keep up with him because of his speed. And he also has very strong hand usage against press coverage, which makes him able to get off the line really quickly. And then his hands are also super soft. He barely dropped any passes at all when he was at Texas. And another thing here, like I saw him drop a couple passes at the combine. Another thing where it's probably just the nerves and nothing to really worry about. But a couple thing here is he does encounter difficulty when facing collegiate edge defenders at the line. So people that can really challenge his physicality at the line of scrimmage, he does have trouble with. But at the same time, at the NFL level, you're not going to really have edge rushers, covering like that against a tight end. Although you might have to. Given his freakish abilities. But I don't see that being too big of an issue. Although it's definitely something he could probably work on, just getting stronger off the line and really getting stronger hands in case when that situation happens. But it's not something I'm really super duper concerned about. Although he is a good outside blocker, when it comes to being more inside or like just off the line traditional blocking tight end roles, it definitely needs to be more consistent for me. Which is why I think he'd benefit more in a passing offense compared to one that's more run oriented. And this just becomes because he's a limited blocker. In limited action, he's underperformed as a pass blocker. And in the run game, he's only average. So a lot of it just has to come with just limited ability and limited action as a more traditional blocking tight end. But overall, he just needs better development and will need a little bit of time. Probably would suit him best if he sits behind as a backup for a year and really takes over in the second year. But he's definitely demonstrated the ability to be a dynamic receiving threat and showcases his ability to create mismatches in the passing game and stretch the field vertically. His skill set suggests that he would thrive in a spread offense system where his receiving skills would be a major asset, where he could also quickly put up big numbers and present a heavyweight speed mismatch for pro defenses. Despite his outstanding receiving talents, he does face the challenges of developing more into a well-rounded tight end at the pro level. His progression as an inline blocker will be critical for him to transition to an every down player. His current agility and quickness offer a good base for improvement, and his potential as a super dependable option who hardly ever drops an on-target pass adds another layer to his profile, making him a valuable target for quarterbacks looking for a safety blanket. Looking ahead to the draft, he's likely to draw attention as a day 2 prospect, just talked about it. He presents a compelling combination of immediate impact potential in the passing game and room for growth as a blocker. Sanders is the kind of player who can make an immediate impact as a receiver and transform an offense. He is the second best tight end in this year's class. for a reason. And the best fits here, if you don't draft Bowers, I think Cincinnati will draft Ja'Tavion Sanders. I think they're going to draft a tight end in the first or second round. I believe the Bengals need that. It's either going to be tight end or going to be receiver. And definitely if you want a guy like Keon Coleman or Troy Franklin that might fall, or you draft a guy like Bowers or Ja'Tavion Sanders, I think Cincinnati is definitely going to be drafting a receiver for sure within the first 2 rounds. And Ja'Tavion Sanders is the guy who could really fit in. And while he probably would start day 1 for them, because Brian Callahan's offense utilizes receivers more than tight ends, definitely would allow him just to ease in more compared to just being a high volume guy being forced to make a ton of catches day 1. But another team here is the New Orleans Saints. They also need receiving help. If they can't get one of these top receivers, Ja'Tavion Sanders would not be a bad option to help. So you get a guy that can attack the middle, and then you got Olave who is really good on the outside. And the Seattle Seahawks is another option for me as well, because they have a great receiving trio, but adding a receiving tight end, Ja'Tavion Sanders, will help him, with all the other receivers running around, keep attention off of him, and would allow him to thrive and develop more easily and more naturally into an offense that really should be pass oriented moving forward in Seattle. And the last one is Kansas City. With Travis Kelce getting older in age and could be retiring soon, it definitely could allow Ja'Tavion Sanders to step in, be a backup, and grow to be that number 1 guy after a couple years, or however long Kelce's going to stay there. So I could probably look out for that as well, for me. The third place, Theo Johnson out of Penn State, another late second, early third round guy. He's 6'6", 259 pounds. He had 34 catches for 341 yards and 7 touchdowns. And he is probably the freakish athlete out of all the tight ends in this draft, arguably. He boasts well-rounded athleticism, excelling as a linear route runner with ability to generate separations through physicality and speed. He shows a knack for finding soft spots in zone coverage, paired with a quick burst off the line, making him a reliable target in the passing game. He also demonstrates his superior blocking capabilities, utilizing a combination of his size and strength and technique to dominate in the run game. He also exhibits exceptional hands and body control, able to secure catches at various depths and adjust the passes with ease. He has also been shown to be effective in the red zone, leveraging his frame and athletic traits to outmatch defenders and secure touchdowns. And along with his ability as a receiver, he's very versatile in where he lines up, capable of contributing both in-line and flex out as a receiver, enhancing his offensive scheming options and his versatility. He also brings creative after-the-catch abilities to his game, showcasing long, strong leg turn and the balance to extend plays and maximize his yardage. And his route running shows flashes of sophistication, employing a mix of speed and physicality to create the separation he needs. And while it shows flashes, the route running overall could really, it's inconsistent, really could use some improvement, particularly in snapping off the routes efficiently, which may limit his utility on certain plays, especially starting out in his career. And while he possesses good speed, he lacks elite short area quickness and agility, which can impact separation against more agile defenders. And his initial burst is consistent as well, with occasional sluggishness out of his stance that can delay his engagement in plays. And he also has room to refine his catching technique, particularly in contested situations, to ensure more consistent reception success. And while he is a formidable blocker, it does require further technique refinement to maximize the leverage and impact against NFL caliber competition. But overall, Theo Johnson's path to the NFL draft, it highlights a player with a solid foundation in key areas, complemented by standout athletic traits. With his versatility in both as an inline and flex out receiver, Theo Johnson brings a dynamic element to the tight end position. His ability to create separation through physicality and refined route running, combined with dependable hands, makes him a dependable target. Johnson's prowess as a blocker adds another layer to his game, showcasing his potential to contribute as a both run and pass protector as well. His draft stock is definitely buoyed by his athletic profile. As we talked about, he is definitely a freak athlete and probably has as high of an upside as any tight end in the draft not named Brock Bowers. Of course, that's not he's number 3 for a reason, so I guess that's only Ja'Tavion Sanders. But definitely all 3 of these guys have a ton of upside to be able to be really good receivers at the next level. And definitely he possesses the best run blocking ability out of the 3 we've talked about so far. And overall, while we talked about the ton of elements in the game need polishing, he's more of a raw prospect. His skill set offers a solid foundation for what an NFL team can build upon. And some of my best fits here, Carolina is one. And we'll see this as a common theme with tight ends is if a team can't draft the receiver they want, I wouldn't be upset if they drafted one of these tight ends who would have a lot of receiving upside as well. And definitely could be a steal if drafted and developed right. And another team here is the LA Chargers. The Chargers have never had a really good tight end other than Antonio Gates and Gerald Everett. So they definitely could use they could definitely get another use a tight end in the building that's really good. You can really, maybe not put up Antonio Gates numbers, of course, but definitely have that potential and really be a good player, consistent player. They've definitely had more good receivers as of late compared to tight ends. So that could be an option for them in the second, third round. And the Rams are also another option. You have Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, so having another guy that can attack the middle of the field with size and speed would be really good and help balance that out a little bit and make it that much harder for defenses to cover the middle of the field. And another one is Miami. Because you have Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill running around on the outside, having a guy with a lot of good speed for his size and just a big guy running in the middle of the field while Tyreek Hill and Waddle are trying to take the top off your defense might pose to be a nightmare fuel for opposing teams going up against that. It would not surprise me if the Dolphins drafted one of these tight ends in the draft, and definitely would make their offense that much more explosive. And then my number 4 guy, Cade Stover out of Ohio State. I have a third round grade on him. He's 6'4", 247 pounds. He had 41 catches, 576 yards, and 5 touchdowns. And the big thing for me here is he has a very solid, well-proportioned frame with good box-out utility and length. He's explosive enough downfield to get deep and manages to get a step on linebackers. And he's surprisingly agile. He's able to hurdle defenders in space and recollect his stride. And along with that, he's able to adjust very well. And he's effective as a run-after-catch threat. His hand strength is very well. He can pry away passes from defenders, which makes him a reliable catcher. And despite his hand strength, his hands are very soft. And he has very strong hand-eye coordination to complement it well. And when it comes to key situations, especially on third down, he's shown to have a clutch gene, definitely making plays for Kyle McCord when it matters. And after the catch, he's also very physical, and he consistently finishes forward against contact. Some things I would like to see improved, though, is that he lacks the speed to maintain space and can be run down by faster athletes. And while he's good and very athletic for his size, there's no elite athletic trait like the guys above him that can really rely on. And his catch radius is also not great, not easily able to pull in off-target passes. And he'll also need to adapt to more complex defensive schemes to be successful in the NFL, which is obviously more sophisticated and faster paced. And when it comes to running his routes, he tends to play way too tall. He lacks that sink and flexibility that you would like to see as a receiver. And his blocking skills are also very underdeveloped due to his overall inexperience in playing offense. He was a defensive lineman, then transitioned to tight end. But he does present a nice blend of toughness and explosiveness, and it makes him a quality tight end prospect despite his relative inexperience. His transition from being a pass rusher to a tight end highlights his adaptability through his rawness in the position manifests in his route running and his blocking. His ability to move in traffic and work between zones does need a lot of refinement, a skill that should improve with NFL-level coaching. His physicality and assertiveness as a blocker are notable, but he must develop consistently, particularly in driving his feet to maintain blocks. Stover's current skill set and growth potential make him an attractive draft prospect, particularly for teams looking for a physically dominant tight end who contribute both in the passing game and eventually as a blocker. While he might not project as a dynamic field stretcher, he does have strong hands, and his physicality and potential could allow him to develop into a more nuanced route runner position and also be a more overall promising developmental starter in the NFL. And a couple of teams that I think would be a good fit, of course, Carolina and Cincinnati. We've talked about them already. And a couple other teams here could be New England is one I think about, because by the third round rolls around, a lot of the top elite receiver prospects, in my opinion, will be off the board. While there's still a lot of guys in the third round that you could get and probably get good value out of, I think you get a guy like Cade Stover, you could develop as a developmental guy, could definitely help a lot, especially with the offense that New England's run over the years and probably what Gerard Mayo will look to continue to run as the new head coach. And another one is the San Francisco 49ers. Obviously, George Kittle is arguably the best tight end in football, so there's not really much of a need to draft another tight end. But if he falls late third round, it would not surprise me if you drafted him, because you have Deebo Samuel, you have Brandon Ayuk, you have a ton of talented receivers, also Christian McCaffrey that can line up in different situations. But then you have two tight ends, which can also just increase the diversity and versatility that the 49ers offense has, and can just be really another one of those weapons that Kyle Shanahan has at his disposal to be able to deceive defenses even more than he already has. Oh man, my throat is getting really dry. All right, and we're gonna close this out with Ben Sinnott out of Kansas State. I have a mid third round grade, very early fourth at the lowest. He's 6'4", 250 pounds. He had 49 catches for 676 yards and 6 touchdowns. He boasts impressive acceleration and burst, quickly covering ground and challenging defenders. He also demonstrates above-average speed, effectively stretching the seam and threatening crossers. He exhibits strong ball finding and shielding abilities in traffic, which enhances his catch potential. And he also displays solid blocking strength, contributing effectively to the run game. He exemplifies positional flexibility, adeptly performing across various alignments. He also shows quickness to navigate routes and evade redirection, enhancing route running efficiency. He's also shown to be capable of making contested catches with reliable hands, which adds value in tight situations, and utilizes agility and positional blocking skills to support the run game in open space. Overall, though, for weaknesses, he struggles with blocking technique and mobility, often taking ineffective angles. He also lacks the ability to consistently use his length for separation at the top of routes. He shows limited explosive ability, affecting sharp route execution and open field agility, and he faces challenges in maintaining blocking dominance near the line, requiring more strict improvements. And he also occasionally slow to engage his hands in catching, needing quicker, stronger hand use. But overall, Ben Sinnott emerges as the tight end prospect whose tape reveals a player with a tool set that is both intriguing but also somewhat limited. His acceleration off the line and his capacity to find seams in the defense make him a nice target in the passing game. His ability to make contested catches and use his agility as a positional blocker to open space adds layers to his offensive utility, highlighting his potential as a multifaceted asset in a dynamic offense. However, his evaluation isn't just red flags. His route running, particularly at the top of routes, lacks the crispness and explosiveness needed to consistently create separation against NFL caliber defensive backs. This, coupled with his below average blocking technique and short area mobility, suggests a developmental curve may be necessary. Sinnott struggles against man coverage, and leveraging his physicality to maximize separation could limit his immediate impact. Overall, though, his profile presents a compelling case for NFL teams looking for a tight end who contribute in a variety of roles. His strong hands, his IQ, and versatility make him likely a day 3 pick, although I think he'll go 3rd or 4th, with the potential for significant growth at the professional level. Teams willing to invest in his development could find a gem in Ben Sinnott, particularly in schemes that favor tight ends with the flexibility to line up both in line and in the backfield. And some of his best fits for me, definitely like a running football team could use his services. If you're the team like Indianapolis, and you don't think taking Brock Bowers or another one of these tight ends it's a little bit too high, and you have other needs you think is bigger than tight end, definitely a guy you can put in there, develop him, and maybe he can turn into something special for you. That's probably like my best fit for him, honestly. I would also like to say Baltimore maybe, but they have Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely, so it's not really he's not going to show that much playing time there, in my opinion. Although there was a point in time when they did have a 3-headed monster at tight end, when Mark Andrews, Hayden Hurst, and then Max Williams in 2019, like that was a terrifying duo to go up against. And if you get a guy, if you can draft like a receiver, you draft like Adonai Mitchell, and then you draft Ben Sinnott, you have a 3-headed monster at tight end and dynamic duo at receiver. That definitely presents a very dangerous passing game for NFL defense to go up against, with a reigning MVP in Lamar Jackson. But that's going to do it for me. We just cover the top 10 wide receivers in the 2024 NFL draft, along with top 5 tight ends. I hope you all enjoyed listening to this edition of the Shumake Take. I know that the watching element wasn't there today, but I'm just going to work around it, see what sticks, and I hope the audio was consistent here as well. I'm pretty sure it will be. I'm confident in that. But that will do it for me. And next episode, we got to cover offensive linemen. So it'll be a pretty fun episode, I think, to cover the big guys protecting the quarterback. But that will do it, and I will see you in the next one.